Hi. My name is Lena. And a few weeks ago, I was supposed to get married. I was supposed to walk down an aisle in a long lace gown, surrounded by friends and family, with violins playing and flower petals in the air. I was supposed to smile, cry, say I do. But none of that happened. Because I made a mistake. A terrible one. Or maybe several. And I'm not here to ask for pity. I'm here to tell you the truth. Because maybe someone, somewhere, needs to hear what happens when you try to live two lives. I met Nathan 3 years ago in the most boring way possible. I spilled my coffee on his sketchbook in a quiet bookstore in downtown Seattle. He was calm. Way too calm for someone whose entire blueprint had just been ruined with soy latte. But he looked up at me with those steady eyes and said, "It's okay. I hated that design anyway." That was Nathan. Solid. Safe. Thoughtful. The kind of man who makes you believe that real love is possible. And for a long time, I believed it too. We built a life together. Bought a dog. Cooked Sunday dinners. He even let me paint in the living room, even when the smell of oils made him gag. Everyone thought we were perfect. And maybe we were. On the outside. But the inside? That's where things start to rot. I should have been honest. About who I was. About the scars I carried. About the part of me that never truly felt like I deserved something good. Instead, I started hiding. First, it was little things. Working late when I wasn't. Turning my phone face down when Nathan walked into the room. Saying I was tired when I just didn't want to talk. And then came Miles. But I won't talk about Miles yet. Not now. Not in this part of the story. Because if I do, you'll judge me before you hear everything else. Let me take you back to the week before the wedding. The week where everything looked beautiful. But felt wrong. We were staying at this gorgeous old mountain house Nathan's family rented in Colorado. It had this wraparound porch and the kind of silence you don't get in the city. At night, you could hear the wind in the trees. During the day, birds you didn't know existed would land right on the railing. It was peaceful. Too peaceful. I kept waking up at 3 a.m. Heart pounding. Not from joy. From something else. Something I couldn't name. Nathan would turn over in bed and smile at me like everything was perfect. And I would smile back. I hated myself for it. One morning, I went for a walk in the woods behind the house. I needed to clear my head. It was 6 a.m., fog still hanging low between the trees, and I could hear my own footsteps like whispers in the wet grass. I sat on a rock and pulled out my phone. Opened a message thread. Paused. Then typed. I don't know if I can go through with this. But I didn't hit send. I stared at it for a long time, then locked the screen.
He said he doesn't want any conflict. He wants the day to be peaceful. That moment shattered something in me. It wasn't the wedding. I didn't care about centerpieces or speeches. It was that my own brother, the person who once swore he'd never let anyone come between us, stood by while I was cut out of his life's biggest moment like a character edited from a script. And he didn't even have the courage to call me himself. That night, I booked a ticket to Madeira. I'd never been. I didn't care. I just picked the farthest, loneliest, most peaceful place I could find. An island with cliffs, wind, waves, and no memories. I turned off my phone. Disabled every notification. Deleted my email app. I wasn't running. I was erasing. The first day, I cried. The second, I slept nearly 20 hours. On the third, I sat at the edge of a cliff, watching the waves crash below, and I asked myself, am I really that unnecessary? Do I truly matter so little? And that's when I remembered a quote I once read. You are not too much. They're just too little. Maybe it wasn't me. Maybe I had just been forgiving for far too long. Too understanding. Too accommodating. Too quiet. Because when I really thought about it, this wasn't the first time Alex had let me down. There was the time he sided with Dad when he humiliated me. The time he missed my graduation, saying work was too hectic. The birthdays he forgot. The promises he broke. The silences I filled. I always forgave him. Always made excuses. Because he was my brother. But this time, something in me snapped. I sat in that silence, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight of all the moments I let slide. All the pain I swallowed. All the times I smiled through disappointment. And I realized, this trip wasn't about escape. It was about remembering who I was before they decided who I should be. A sister. A cheerleader. A background character in someone else's love story. And I wasn't angry anymore. Just, done. But then a thought struck me. One I tried to push away. What if everything falls apart? What if Amanda calls it off? What if Alex regrets everything and tries to find me? Will it be too late? I imagined my phone lighting up with missed calls. My mom sobbing on voicemail. Alex whispering I'm sorry into the void. I hated that part of me still hoped it would happen, just to prove I wasn't crazy. That I did matter. And yet, I also knew. I didn't want anything bad to happen. I didn't want their wedding ruined. I didn't want anyone hurt. I just wanted to be seen. But I wasn't. Not by him. And in that stillness, between the cliffs and the sea, I realized something powerful. I didn't disappear. They just chose to look away. And maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning. Of a Sarah who no longer bends herself into shapes to fit others' expectations. Of a Sarah who doesn't beg for a seat at a table she helped build. But then a thought struck me. One I tried to push away. What if everything falls apart? What if Amanda calls it off? What if Alex regrets everything and tries to find me? Will it be too late? I imagined my phone lighting up with missed calls. My mom sobbing on voicemail. Alex whispering I'm sorry into the void. I hated that part of me still hoped it would happen, just to prove I wasn't crazy. That I did matter. And yet, I also knew. I didn't want anything bad to happen. I didn't want their wedding ruined. I didn't want anyone hurt. I just wanted to be seen. But I wasn't. Not by him. And in that stillness, between the cliffs and the sea, I realized something powerful. I didn't disappear. They just chose to look away. And maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning. Of a Sarah who no longer bends herself into shapes to fit others' expectations. Of a Sarah who doesn't beg for a seat at a table she helped build. Of a woman who stops asking, why don't they want me? And starts saying, I choose myself. Studio microphone to the viewers. Have you ever felt like someone just erased you? What hurts more, rejection from a lover, or betrayal from family? Would you forgive a sibling who made you feel invisible? It was day 5 on the island. By then, I had started to feel something I hadn't felt in weeks, peace. No messages. No questions. No pretending to be okay. Just me, the ocean, and a silence that didn't hurt anymore. That morning, I woke up early and stood on my tiny balcony overlooking the cliffs. The wind was strong, it pulled up my hair like it wanted to tell me something. I took a deep breath, poured myself coffee, and for the first time in days, I turned my phone back on. I thought maybe I'd have a few missed calls from my mom, maybe a text from an old friend. But nothing prepared me for what I saw. 53 missed calls. Dozens of messages. From Mom. From Dad. From Alex. Even from Amanda. My heart dropped. My fingers froze above the screen. What happened? I scrolled through the notifications, still half in denial. The first few messages were short. Please call me. We need to talk. It's urgent. Then came one from my mom. Sarah, something happened at the wedding. Please. Just answer. And then, one from Alex. I messed up. I really messed up. I need you. It felt surreal. I stared at the words, not fully processing them. The wedding was supposed to have happened yesterday. And now, this? I opened my mom's voice message. Her voice was shaking. Sweetheart, I don't know how to say this. The wedding didn't go as planned. Amanda, well, she left. There was a huge fight. In front of everyone. Please, come home. Alex is broken. Amanda left? I listened again. A million thoughts ran through my mind. My heart pounded. I sat on the edge of the bed, gripping the phone like it could give me answers faster. More texts followed. I'm sorry for what I said. You were right. I shouldn't have listened to her. My brother. My hero. The same one who had cut me out, who hadn't even given me the respect of a conversation, was now begging for me to come back. And Amanda? What had happened between them? Later, my mom filled in the blanks. The night before the wedding, Amanda had a full-blown breakdown over a flower arrangement. Yes, flowers. She accused the planner of sabotaging her vision. She screamed at the staff. She insulted the caterer, saying the food smelled like cheap memories. But that wasn't the worst part. She cornered my mom in the hallway and told her, straight-faced, I don't want you at the ceremony. You represent the chaos in Alex's past. And I want a clean future. Can you imagine hearing that? As a mother? Mom was in tears. She didn't tell Alex at first, she didn't want to ruin his day. But someone overheard. The story spread. And when Alex found out what Amanda had said to her, something in him broke. He confronted Amanda that night. She told him coldly. You either choose your new life, or your old baggage. And Alex hesitated. He hesitated. She took that as a no, packed her things, and disappeared the morning of the wedding. Left him standing there, tuxedo pressed, boutonniere pinned, looking like a man who just woke up from a dream he didn't know was a nightmare. Guests had arrived. The venue was decorated. And the bride was gone. The ceremony never happened. And now, they wanted me. Me, the emotional sister. The one who wasn't good for the vibe. Me, who hadn't been worthy of a seat, but was now the first person they reached for when it all came crashing down. And I didn't know what to feel. I wanted to scream, now you need me? I wanted to cry, why did you choose her over me? I wanted to say, you made me invisible. And now you're looking for someone you can't even see anymore. But mostly, I just felt hollow. Like I had waited for this apology for so long, and now that it had come, it didn't fix anything. The wound had already scarred over. I sat on that balcony for hours. My phone in my lap. Unanswered. I thought about calling back. About flying home. About holding my brother's hand and telling him it would be okay. But then I thought, who held my hand when I was crying on this floor? Who told me I'd be okay when I felt like I didn't exist? I had to learn how to comfort myself. How to be my own sister. And now, they were asking me to drop everything, to show up, because the one they chose had vanished? That's not love. That's convenience. That's desperation. That's your backup plan energy. And for once in my life, I wasn't going to play that role. I sent Alex a short message. I'm okay. I need space. I'll come back when I am ready, not when you decide. He replied instantly. I deserve that. I'm sorry, Sarah. I really am. It wasn't enough. Maybe someday, it would be. But not today. Because I had finally learned something powerful. Being needed doesn't mean being loved. Sometimes people come running back to you because everything else they depended on crumbled. Not because they truly value you, but because you're familiar. Because you've always been the one to patch the holes, to smooth the edges, to stay. And I wasn't that woman anymore. The next day, I booked another 2 weeks on the island. I hiked alone. I wrote in a journal. I cried when I needed to. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, solid. Not perfect. Not healed. But real. And every time my phone buzzed, I didn't flinch. Because I wasn't afraid of missing something anymore. I wasn't the one missing. They were. Studio microphone to the viewers. Have you ever been someone's afterthought, until they had no one else? Did you go back? Or did you stay away? When someone who hurt you suddenly needs you, do you answer? Speech balloons, share your story in the comments. I read every word. And if this resonates with you, if you've ever felt erased, or used, or needed only when it was convenient, just know. You're not alone. 3 weeks passed before I returned home. I didn't tell anyone. I wanted to walk into my life quietly, not as someone who had been wronged, not as the sister who'd been forgotten, but as a woman who had finally learned how to take up space again. The airport felt colder than I remembered. It wasn't winter. It was something else. Like the city had moved on without me, and I wasn't sure I wanted to chase it. When I walked into my apartment, everything was untouched. Exactly how I'd left it, a blanket half folded on the couch. A mug with dried tea at the bottom. Silence. Familiar, but no longer threatening. And on the kitchen table, a letter. In Alex's handwriting. I didn't even know he'd had a spare key. It wasn't long. But it was enough. I don't know where to begin. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I hope I haven't lost you forever. I chose the wrong person. And in doing so, I lost the right one. Please let me try again. As your brother. I sat down. Read it again. And for the first time, I didn't cry. Not because I didn't feel, but because I had already grieved. Grieved the version of our relationship I had always held on to. The version where he'd always protect me. Where family was unconditional. Where I didn't have to earn love by being quiet, helpful, or small. That version was gone. What remained was something new. Raw. Uncertain. A week later, I agreed to meet him. Public place. Neutral ground. No expectations. He looked tired. Not just physically, soul tired. Like someone who had finally realized how fragile love really is, when taken for granted. We sat down. He didn't even say hello. He just said. I was scared of her. And I was proud. That's a dangerous mix. I nodded. I thought keeping her happy meant cutting out the messy parts of my life. But you're not a mess. You're my sister. I stayed quiet. She hated how close we were. Said you had too much influence. That you were always questioning her. And maybe you were. But maybe I needed that. I looked at him. And finally, I spoke. She didn't take me from you, Alex. You gave me away. He dropped his gaze. I know. You told me to stop being dramatic. That I was ruining the vibe. But what you really meant was, stop making things uncomfortable. Stop being a mirror. He swallowed hard. He didn't deny it. You didn't just forget to invite me to your wedding. You made a choice. You silenced me to keep the peace. And the worst part? I would have stood by you anyway. I always have. Tears welled in his eyes. I'm sorry, Sarah. I was weak. I didn't want to lose her. And I ended up losing you. And there it was, the truth. Not dressed up. Not excused. Just raw. We talked for hours that day. About childhood. About our parents. About what love should look like. He didn't ask me to forgive him, not directly. But in the way he listened. I could tell he hoped for it. And I told him something I had practiced saying for weeks. I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean things go back to how they were. It means I stop carrying the weight of your choices. He nodded. Whatever relationship we rebuild, it has to be new. And it has to be mutual. In the months that followed, we started slowly. Coffee once a week. No mention of Amanda. No pressure. Just brother and sister, trying to find each other again. But here's the truth most people won't tell you. Rebuilding trust is harder than falling in love. Because love is emotional. But trust? That's architectural. It's made of actions, consistency, humility. And while Alex tried, he also stumbled. Sometimes he over-apologized. Other times, he avoided hard topics. But every time I pointed it out, he listened. And that mattered. One night, months later, he told me something I'll never forget. You know what I regret most? Not just excluding you from the wedding. But letting someone convince me that you were the problem, when you were the only one seeing clearly. That hit me in the chest. Because for so long, I had believed I was too much. Too intense. Too emotional. When in truth, I was the only one brave enough to say, this isn't love. This is control. And maybe that made me inconvenient. But it also made me free. Today, I'm in a different place. Emotionally. Mentally. Even physically, I moved to a new apartment across the city. Started writing again. Journaling. Therapy. And Alex? He's growing. He's learning that love isn't about obedience. It's about presence. And I see him trying to be better, not just for me, but for himself. We're not back to normal. But we're real. And that's more than I could have hoped for. Some of you watching this might be thinking, should I forgive someone who left me out when I needed them most? Or, what if I want to repair the relationship, but I don't know how to trust again? I get it. There's no easy answer. But let me tell you what I've learned. You don't have to go back to the old story. You can write a new one where you're no longer the side character. You're the author now. You choose who stays. You choose how much access they get. And most of all, you choose yourself. And that's not selfish. That's survival. Studio microphone to the viewers. Have you ever had to rebuild a relationship with someone who hurt you? Did it work out? Or did you realize it was better left in the past? Do you believe people can truly change, or just pretend better? Speech balloon, tell me your story in the comments. Your experience might help someone who's standing at the same crossroads. And if this story moved you, subscribe. I share real stories, emotional truths, and voices that deserve to be heard. Don't miss the next one. Broken Heart Movie Camera. Bell, subscribe for more real stories like this. You're not alone.